You already know my debacle with church. I'm not a fan of church. I don't go to church anymore. For obvious reason, it's all fake. But more so...
Preach from the YouTube channel Abba Preach talks about why he left Christianity forever. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's a channel where you find the truth, seek understanding, and be the light. It's your boy, Blue. And let's just go ahead and let's get into it. So, real quick, Abba Preach, it's a YouTube channel, just two Canadians. One of them, he's Abba. He's a former Muslim, which is interesting because his name is Abba. And he is former Muslim, Ethiopian, and Preach, who I guess is a former Christian or grew up in a Christian environment and decided to not be about it anymore. He's actually Haitian, just like I am. And they both live in Canada. And they big YouTubers, big following, great following. Talk about stuff that we talk about, except not from a biblical perspective. So, you know, there's that. But the reason that I watch these guys is because they provide a lot of good, decent insight, pretty good laughs. And yeah, there's been some stuff that's been happening lately that's kind of like had me like, yo, what's going on here, guys? But at the end of the day, I mean, they are still who they are. And from the jump, I had an idea. I mean, Preach has said before that he wasn't big on Christianity anymore, or religion in a sense. And he gives me that types of vibe. And now he's actually going to talk about it. So let's go ahead and, you know, just take a dive on his mindset, why he feels the way that he does.
You already know my debacle with church. I'm not a fan of church. I don't go to church anymore. For obvious reason, it's all fake. But more so...
Okay, well, no, I have to say one thing. Do you just enjoy antagonizing Christians?
Yes. So Baptists from Africa, Baptists from Jamaica, Baptists from Haiti are not going to look, they're going to be like, you sing like that. What's that gibberish you talking about? It's weird. Because you have to remember that black people hate everything about slavery except religion, right? So they're really going to look at each other.
Yeah.
No.
Yo. You know what? Chat. Let me know if that was not a bar. Tripping. Why do you hate Jesus?
You start to ask yourself questions when you grow up in that environment. You start to ask yourself the questions, and some things are just not making any more sense. You know what I mean? You try to.
And this is a part. Okay, I may be stopping a while, so I apologize. But just off of that statement alone, this is why it's important to disciple. And, you know, give that perspective to, you know, think, not only to think for yourself, but look at it at what it is that you have in front of you. And again, like I always say, actually read the Bible and seek proper guidance, because the problem that a lot of people are having, especially those that leave the faith, is that you don't read the full Bible and realize that it's not just a simple book. This isn't R.L. Stein or, you know, Tim Burton or whatever other authors said. This is the history. This is stuff that's all been accounted for by even things and events that happen in other locations can make an account for the events that happen in the Bible. So there's definitely validity to the Bible. But let's keep going.
Analyze some things and it doesn't click. It doesn't make sense to you. Neil Tyson deGrasse said the best. It's not for me. I have to shout him out because he said something that embodies what I think about church and Christianity. He said, do you believe in God, since you're a man of science? And he said, well,
if there is a God, God is either not all powerful or not all good.
And from the information that I have from church, these two things do not coexist.
Like believing that he's not these two things?
He's not these two things at the same time. And I have no evidence that he's these two things at the same time. If he's all good, then he's not all powerful. If he's all good, then he wouldn't let happen a lot of things that are happening right now. And if he's all powerful, that means that he has the power to change all the things that are wrong, but he's not good enough to change them.
Okay. Now, I haven't been to seminary. school or anything like that. And this tends to be a topic for a lot of people, especially for the young people. If God is real, why is it that this happened? Why is it that that happened? Why is it that people get raped? Why is it that there's so much killing? Why is it that there's famine? Why is it that there's storms and then it just wipes away, whole cities and towns and kills thousands of people? Why is it that we all just can't? Why? The idea behind this is free will. Imagine if he was to stop all these things from happening. And you know what's interesting? I wasn't too fond of the movie, the Marvel movie. What's it called? There we go. Okay. So the Marvel movie Eternals, there was one specific part. There's a guy, there's one of the guys, I guess gods, lowercase g, that will put. So one of the gods, he can control people's mind and literally make them do whatever he wants. So when they end up getting in a fight and they all end up separating, he is in like South Africa and stuff like that. And he creates a utopia where they just do whatever the heck they ask him to do. And then they live in peace because he controls their mind the whole time and decides what it is that they do and what they don't do. He is essentially God in that area. Imagine if he did that, then you wouldn't be where you are right now. You wouldn't be thinking the way that you think right now. You wouldn't have the free will to do anything, which is the whole premise of God's relationship with us, because he could have just had the angels in heaven do that. They are the ones that worship him day in and day out, minus Lucifer and all the other ones that, dropped off. But the reason that we are here in this earth is because we have been given the free will so that we can live our life, but also remember who it is that gave us this life and live in a manner which pleases him. Or else we would have been like Mr. Mindslayer over here, that's over here taking over everybody's mind. And then eventually one of the people told them, you can't control their minds. We were set to give them the free will so that they can live their lives and make their decisions. And I think one of the problems was that they got to a point where one of the guys, he was the inventor, had created an invention. I think there was during the time period where he created guns, and then that's when they started having wars, and then it was a big problem. And then homie was like, yo, I could just control their minds and then everything will be good. We won't have this anymore. We won't have this issue anymore. You want your mind controlled? I don't think people like to be controlled to that extent. I think they like their free will. So God allows us to live our free will. But the problem is, because of sin, we stir away from God in the way that he wanted us to live and decided to do things on our own. We still have the free will to live. What are we going to live for the world? Or are we going to live for God? Now, that's a whole different thing that, again, I'm no pastor, but this is understanding when it comes to relationship with God and why we have free will and why he doesn't just take everything out. Because if he controlled absolutely everything that happened in this world to just be peaches and cream, then why would he have done that? He could have just had heaven. It makes no sense. The other thing that I think about when I think about this type, when people ask this question, there's this game called SimCity where you're literally God. You control a whole city, you control a whole town, you control how things are. I mean, you're the mayor, you're the governor, whatever it is that you want to call, and you control everything that's being built up. But you decide when stuff is going to be thrown down. And anytime you think, maybe it's time for a tsunami, or maybe it's time for a fire, maybe it's time for an earthquake, and things just happen. But you caused that to happen. So, with that being said, for you to just be able to choose what is to dictate and control everything that happens in that city, in this world. Imagine the actual God that is in control of everything. That's way too far to really fathom. At that point, if you really understood why God did everything that he does, why would you serve him? Why would we ever serve him? Because at that point, we know as much as he does. Why would you serve? Why would you praise somebody? Why would you worship him? if we were able to be on the same level at that point. I mean, that's just a thought. That's not something specific to preach, but with that mindset, it's like, that's a thing. That's the thing. Let's keep going.
Stuff like that, stuff that are written in the Old Testament, stuff that are written in the New Testament, and I'm just like, I don't identify with it anymore. And it's cool with other people. That's one of the things. It's cool if other people are with it, but
I just want to know, what is it? Like, I literally just finished reading the whole Old Testament, and I'm going again through the New Testament. What is it that people just can't rock with? I don't get it. Like, I understand that there's convictions and people are always going to feel convictions. But like at this point, I'm like, where, and maybe I haven't dug too deep and really remembered all of these verses, but because when I was growing up, there were very few things where I'm just like, I can't rock with this in the Bible. So sometimes I wonder, what is it in the Bible that you don't rock with?
And I have another weird feeling as well when people from the Caribbean are the most religious people, and that religion was imposed to them by their masters. So, and I have an issue with that.
You're talking about how it was introduced.
We can say the same thing about French. I mean, Haitians swear up and down that learning French and French is the best thing. Mind you, they're the ones that colonized us, but I say less.
Introduced to black folks.
Yeah, I was introduced to Caribbean people. Like how I was introduced to certain parts of Africa, not all the parts of Africa. I'm not talking about the Orthodox.
You're not talking about Ethiopians.
No, I'm not talking about them because I believe that they're the original one. Emmanuel Selassie, Rastafari. Anyways,
we've been having Christianity.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is that it feels weird the way it was introduced, because it was introduced as a tool, right? And what the Caribbean are using is the Bible of the King James, the guy that killed his own mother. Weird. More than that is that it was introduced to subdue us and to break us. They removed our roots and they removed our beliefs, and they proposed that just to be able to be more docile. So
what did they say about your roots and your beliefs?
What do you mean?
What did they say about them?
Well, it was demonic. It was not good. It was evil.
Witchcraft.
Witchcraft, which is not a reality, of the thing. And
I wonder which part isn't a reality. I guess, are we talking about in terms of definition, saying that this is separate from God, so we consider it witchcraft? I mean, it's learning how to do these type of, type of powers, type of sorceries, and whatever the case may be, but it's outside of God, so we call it witchcraft. So in your case, I guess it's not a reality because to you there is no God, therefore there is no witchcraft. That's what I'm thinking by his definition.
So when I see Caribbean people being very religious, to me it's just like every night going to sleep and kissing goodnight the picture of your rapist. I know the image is crazy, but that's the feeling that I got. If I've seen someone do that, that's what I feel. That's visceral. I'm like, oh my God. Everybody in the world that are religious, they worship someone that look like them. You look like the Hindus, they look like them. The Buddhists, they look like them. The Muslims, they look like them. But people from the Caribbean, it's white. And you can even say, oh no, but it's my God is black, my Jesus is black. But your Bible is from the people that own you. And that's weird.
I'll say in Ethiopia, we got a black Jesus. I know, because every time I go into a church, it's all black.
But all these people are not.
Oh, he looked like he got a forehead?
Yes, and I've seen that Jesus. And
I do personally like that. I think like the that's a personal thing.
Yes, but that's not the because there's an Ethiopian Bible as well.
So getting into that point that he just mentioned, and this is the thing, what he says makes sense. It's a normal thing for people to do back in the day. I mean, even now, if you don't have the tools, if you don't have the research like we do right now. Because honestly, we can't say specifically how people looked way back then. There's a whole bunch of different nations that was over there. The Asias, the Africas, the South Africas, and then some of like the European areas back in the day. Like Like, yes, people can look or make their Jesus, their God, look like them. But now we have the research because Jesus was actually here. Everybody else's God was not here. Our God lived, and we have proof of him living, and we have proof of him dying and being risen. We have accounts for that. So, yes, you can say that back in the day, the white man made Jesus white. Well, that's because that was their thing. There's their way of methods of controlling. But now that we've learned, we've done the research, we got more information, and we're able to find up any information about anywhere and anything, we can tell that Jesus was, in fact, not white. It wouldn't have worked back then. We can say that. But does that matter if he's black or white or Asian? At the end of the day, he's still the guy that came and resurrected from death and saved us for our sins. And I'm going to get to that part at the end.
Because the Bible that we have in the Caribbean that we're using, the King James Bible, I believe has 66 books, and the Ethiopian one has 88. So it was modeled and compressed, and it's not the.
I could be wrong. Somebody in the comment section correct me. I think the reason that the Bible today does not account for the Ethiopian Bible is because it's the book of Enoch. I think it's like the book of Enoch. Well, would Enoch be the rest of 28? I know they mention Enoch, and the thing is they want to account for the New Testament to have all of the apostles who wrote it. Somebody correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong about that.
Real thing. So I'm
Manipulation.
Manipulation. Let me just get out of that, because that's not me. So that's the reason why I'm just like, man. Okay. I'm uncomfortable whenever I see that. There's some part of churches I appreciate because I feel like the praise, no, that's her sauce, that's her spice. We did that. We did that, and that's I appreciate. But other than that, everything that is said in there, the scriptures, the vibe, the hypocrisy, I can't deal with that.
Okay, on my final thoughts, we need to do better as a church, because based off of what he's saying, there's a lot of hypocrisy, there's a lot of craziness, there's a lot of fakeness, there's a lot of flakiness that happens in the church to this day. Yes, and those are the stuff that is mostly televised. Yes, or put out in public on social media and stuff like that. Yes. And sometimes it's really tough to get into a church where they focus mainly on the Bible, on the word, and just try to live off the way that the Bible teaches us to live, the way that Jesus taught us to live in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the way that, we were taught how the first church was brought together in the book of Acts. So when we have that issue of, all these churches that aren't really exhibiting the way that the Bible, tries, especially in this now day and age, there's so much that goes into having to run a church and being true to the word without getting caught up in the world. And I see that happening today. Or you have those people that are like just so strung up on the word to the point where they become like Pharisees, which the reason that God gave them rules, gave them laws, so that they can separate them from the rest of the world. The problem is they lack the heart, which is what God wants, is our heart and our relationship with him, which is why we have Jesus. So with that in turn, all this to say really comes down with reading the Bible. I understand, and this just sounds like church hurt. It's just church hurt to me, is what it sounds like. You have to read the Bible. You have to, actually read the scriptures, see exactly what's going on. Because even me, myself, although I was Christian, I did read the Bibles on occasion while I was growing up, especially while I was in college. There was a point where I didn't read the Bible all that much. I didn't know everything that happened in the Bible. I didn't know all the scripture. I didn't know all the events that was taking place. Heck, there was a point where I didn't even really understand what Passover was. But all I had to do was just read the Old Testament and really pay attention to what I'm reading. You know what I'm saying? A lot of issues that people have when they're reading the Bible and they say they just don't get it and they just not understanding it, because they're kind of reading it as though they're reading a dictionary. The easiest thing for me is really just imagining things as though reading as if I'm actually watching a movie. Use your imagination, guys. Use your imagination. And things will start to make more sense. But it all starts with reading the Bible itself and understanding what it says. Even if you don't understand what it says, finding that person, finding that guidance that will help disciple you to better understand the Bible for what it is, and not talk about all this extra stuff like prosperity gospel or, enabling all the bad decisions that you make and this and the third, and, all these craziness of, I don't know, speaking in tongues and whatnot. And you got to be baptized in order to be saved, even though it doesn't say that. You really have to read the word yourself and see exactly what is being said. Then you can go and be like, yeah, this church is tripping, that church is tripping, that church is tripping. Because the Apostle Paul, and the crazy thing is, it even happened back then because the Apostle Paul went through the same thing with the churches in Corinth and Ephesus, and like literally those churches and all the issues that they have and all the nonsense that they were doing. You would have easily thought that you were talking about today, but it was happening back then as well. And not only that, when we're talking about back then, we're not talking about when King James was written. These are the manuscripts that was written, the accounts that was written in the Hebrew language, in the Aramaic language, in Greek. We have those, and those are translated, and that's what's coming from these versions of the. It goes before King James. That's what we go off of right now. You think the people in Israel are reading King James versions? No. They're reading actual manuscripts. All this to say, I understand where he's coming from. There's a lot of people, that feel the same way, and it hurts me. But I would say give it another chance. Give it another chance and try to do it with an open heart. Because the way that he talks, the way that he sounds, I feel like he's very dead set on his mindset that none of it is true. That the second, he's gonna miss the part where it's about the relationship and really understanding who Jesus is and what he's done for us and everything that came up to the point of him dying on the cross, to where now we switch up even the way that we think and we act and we live our lives. Because these two guys, I mean, for the most part, they live a lot of their ideology is pretty, Christian-esque, or, in the way of the way, some of the stuff, which is why I like to see people that aren't of the faith but have good morals and seeing their viewpoints on a lot of issues. I don't believe me, I don't sit here and take everything that they say as fact and take all their opinions as, oh yeah, what they're saying is absolutely true, because there's definitely some times where I disagree with some of their points, but there's a lot of stuff that I do agree with. Same like with Charlie Kirk, a lot of stuff that I agree with, some stuff I don't agree with. Same with Stevie Knight on Night Talk. There's a lot of stuff that I agree with. I mean, probably some of the things that I don't agree with is his approach when it comes to certain, people, or, based off of their actions, how he kind of defines them sometimes, and his language. But I mean, this is the part with being in relation with people, not allowing their situation, their difference from me, affecting me to be more like them, but me able to still be here and to be able to, have these type of conversations with an open mind, with an open heart, to really understand people in their situation. But yeah, I would hope that I would hope that Preach and Abba give Christianity, or just the way. Let me not even say Christianity, because that could be a trigger word for some people, but they call it the way. Take the way another chance. Really see what's in the Bible for what it is, and not what it was used years ago, but what it was actually intended for. Because you'll realize, and the crazy thing is, when you actually read the Bible, you'll realize why people misinterpreted some things. And you'll also realize why is it that some denominations or some people picked certain stuff from the Bible and used that to manipulate others. But that's not what the Bible is there for. So we can't blame the Bible and the faith for what other people did. Because it's crazy is it also mentions that that's going to happen, that was going to happen too in the Bible. So at the end of the day, interesting. I'm glad that he finally spoke up on it, because I've been waiting on it for a while. But y'all let me know in the comment section what y'all think. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Take it easy. Peace.